Oh.
Call order of regular meeting, Goodyear City Council, February 23rd, 2009. Would you please join Councilmember Holland in the Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, please remain standing. And please bow your head as a sign of respect. For our military on duty here and overseas, please protect them. For our firemen and policemen that guard the home front, keep them safe. For our community, city, and business leaders, help them make good decisions. And special thoughts for the refugees and homeless around the world. May they soon find a place of peace. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All members of council are in attendance. We do have expenditures to ratify this evening, so
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
it's not on. I know. For once, I get to vote on these.
Good.
So I won't be recusing myself this evening as HDR engineering or architecture does not appear.
Any questions or comments on the expenditures? And it's for January 09.
Mr. Mayor, I reviewed the expenditures and find that they're in order.
Okay, then would you make a motion to
I
approve them?
certainly will. I make a motion to approve the items appearing as expenditures, and so moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Souza and a second from Councilmember Lord to approve and ratify expenditures, the accounts payable for January 2009. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it unanimously. We'll now move to communications, and Tim Newble will present CERT Class 08-3.
Good evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and Council. How are you all doing?
Good.
Tim Newble, Emergency Management Coordinator. We're here for another completion of a CERT class. I'm sure they're excited to be done with me. We have the good news about this was the first opportunity that we did a CERT class that was not in the city. Here at the city of Goodyear, we were up in Estrella Mountain at Westar Elementary School. They allowed us to use their campus for not only for the classes, but also for our mock exercises that the participants went through and that they really appreciate. I think that was the most exciting part for you, right, was the mock exercise? All right, so what we'd like to do is I would like to really thank the principal, Dave Richardson. He wasn't able to be here. He's in the meeting, but he gave us just free reign of the school to utilize. And also Janine Van Leeuwen, who's actually here, and she told me she beat me up if I actually pointed her out, but they really wanted this up in Australia, and one of the things, they had a basketball game, they had after-school programs, and something else for that mock exercise, and Janine had them move it all to another school just so that we could do our exercise there, so I really want to commend her for that. What I'd like to do is just introduce our classes, actually 0901, they're the first class for 2009, so I'm going to call them out by name, and we're going to ask that they would stand if they are all here. If they're here, Nike Oluko, I'm sure I mispronounced her name, Elaine Arnaldi, Pat Ball, Bob Baxter, Michelle Baxter, Joyce Behrens, Kathy Blattner, Joanna Colleran, Carl Deerling, John Farrell. Did I mispronounce it? Yeah, that's okay. Let's see. Matt Ford, Sherry Ford, Kimberly Glenn, Brian Johnson, Jackie Lavin, Michael McFillin, Nancy McFillin, Johnny Merrill, Rita Merrill, Amy Odell, Heather Peterson, and Kathy Zook. We actually had 22 that started the class. We had 22 actually complete the class. No one dropped out, so I guess I didn't get on too many people's nerves. But I also like to share that so often I'm the one that come up here and speak, but there are other people, for those of you mayor and council, and I want to thank the city manager also who came up there to speak. You all know that there are people that are volunteering from the city and throughout the community that do it. And I really want to give a special thanks, though, to Jessica Hovland and Kelly Comstock Snell. They're the ones that really deal with all the correspondence, the emails that come in, the information that needs to go out. So I just want to commend this class 09 to 01, and I just want to present them to you this evening, Mayor Kavanaugh and Council. Thank you all very much for your interest and for your participation as well. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you to everyone, the graduates. I know on behalf of the entire council, we all agree that we're thankful that you took the time out of your lives to prepare yourself to help your fellow citizens in time of need. So we thank you very much for that, and we feel we can trust our safety with you. So thank you very much. You can hear me?
I turned mine.
No.
Now everybody can move.
Yeah.
Can we go home too?
Why don't you everybody move?
Okay, it's now time for any citizen to address this council on any subject which is not on this evening's agenda. Would anyone like to address the council on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to the consent agenda, and I'll ask the city clerk to read consent items A through G by title only, please.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a work session, regular meeting, and a special meeting held on January 26, 2009, and a work session held on February 2, 2009. Item B has 11 ordinances. Adopt Ordinance 09-1160, amending Paragraph H of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a general government development fee on all new residential and non-residential development in the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development for the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1161, amending Paragraph J of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for imposition of a library development fee on all new residential development in the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1162, amending Paragraph G of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a public works development fee on all new residential and non-residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1163, amending Paragraph E of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for imposition of a police development fee on all new residential and non-residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve projected demand resulting from new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1164, amending Paragraph F of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a fire and emergency services development fee on all new residential and non-residential development to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2006-2015, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1165, amending Paragraph I of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a Parks and Recreation Development fee on all new residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1166, amending Paragraph D of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of an arterial streets development fee on all new residential and non-residential development to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1167, amending Paragraph M of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a regional transportation development fee on all new residential and non-residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1168, amending Paragraph A of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a water development fee on all new residential and non-residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1169, amending Paragraph K of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a reclaimed water development fee on all new residential and non-residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Adopt Ordinance 09-1170, amending Paragraph B of Section 9-8-3 of Article 9-8 of Chapter 9 of the Goodyear City Code to provide for the imposition of a wastewater development fee on all new residential and non-residential development for the area south of Patterson Road to serve demand resulting from projected new development over the period 2007-2013, providing for an effective date and providing for separability. Item C, approve the final plat for Mountain Ranch Marketplace at Estrella. Item D, adopt Ordinance 09-1159, providing for conditional rezoning of 18.8 acres of land from the Planned Area Development Agriculture and General Commercial C2 with a Planned Area Development PAD overlay zoning districts to the General Commercial C2 zoning district for a future commercial development known as Citrus Center located at the northeast corner of Citrus Road and Van Buren Street, adopting supplementary zoning map 08-001 to provide for the change in zoning, providing separability, and providing for an effective date. Item E, approve the final plat for the Shops at Mountain Ranch commercial condominiums. Item F, approve the following 20 members and 2 alternates to the Goodyear Centennial Committee for a period of approximately 3 years through the state's centennial celebration on February 14, 2012. William Arnold, Michelle Beverly, Pat Blair, Judy Blakeman, an alternate, Sherry Blattner, Dolores Brown, Wally Campbell, Regina Faustino, Carter Groves, Sherilyn Homan, Rhonda King, Patricia Crow, Michelle Kyle, Kara McLeod, Leslie Miller, Robert Ratliff, Roxanne Robles, Julie Schilling, an alternate, Benicio Trujillo, Lou Trujillo, John Vescova, and Gerald Wilson. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Item G, accept the dedication of rights-of-way in a public utility easement by DTD Devco 9, LLC, an Arizona limited liability company for the purpose of constructing portions of Yuma Road and Cotton Lane along the frontage of the Cotton Flower Marketplace development.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Mr. Gelser.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have an item that I want removed, but I have a question on item B, ordinance number 091164, and it talks about a period from 2006 to 2015 when all the other ordinances in that section were 2007 through 2013, and could we get an explanation on why that is a different date? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Dalkey, would you?
Mr. Mayor, Tracy DeSoma will answer the question. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. The reason that was on there, when I prepared the documents, they were off of the documents from the last impact fee study, and the fire department was different because it included a fire fee, a fire department that had started in the previous year. And so this is a typographical error. It should be the same, and I apologize for that. I can get that fixed in the next council meeting. It should be 2007 through 2013.
And we can correct that this evening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? All right, thank you. Good catch. Anyone else in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Would anyone on council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes,
Councilmember Cavalier.
Mayor, I'd like to remove 7D.
7D.
D.
Delta.
In Delta. The reason for that is I have a question on the wastewater service, the impact that would be on the city of Goodyear plus the water impact, the providing of a 16-inch water line. Is that going to be provided by the city of Goodyear, or is that going to be provided by the owner of that property?
I think we can have that question answered. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Cavalier. All the water lines and infrastructure will be put in by the developer. If you're referring to the Cotton Lane RV and Golf Resort is currently on well and septic system, and they currently have plans in, and they will pay for the conversion over to city services.
And they will also pay for the condemnation and taking out the old septic tank system that they have there, so that will all be done by that company.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't need to pull that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Councilmember Osborne.
I just had a comment. I'm very excited about our Centennial Committee, and I wanted to thank our citizens for stepping up and being part of our 100-year birthday. It's important to me, and so besides that in the Youth Commission, I'm excited for our year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You entertain a motion?
Any other? Okay, entertain a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we approve items 7, A through G, amending ordinance 09-1164 to read 2007 through 13. Second.
Motion from Vice Mayor Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Cavalier. Could we have a roll call vote?
Vice Mayor Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Lord.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to the business part of our agenda, and we'll start with the state and federal legislative agenda for 2009, and Romina Corquez will lead us in that discussion.
Quickly see how fast this moves, just so I don't.
Yours is a newer one.
This one is. It went out last meeting, that's why.
Okay. It's
The home button. It'll take you right to the front.
okay. I'll just go ahead and start and try to get this moving along with it. It's been some time since I've been up here, Mayor and Council, in front of you, talking about state legislative issues or federal legislative issues. So I'm sure there's going to be some questions and comments that you need answered. There's been a lot of activity in the past few months. What I'll first do, just to kind of give you an outline so that we know how to break this up, is I'm going to do both the federal and the state agenda tonight. I'm going to go first through the state agenda. You guys have heard most of this stuff before. It's very similar to last year's, a couple of tweaks that are going to be in there that I'll note. And then at the end of that, I'll give you the opportunity to ask some questions with respect to specifically the state issues. And then after that, I'll go into the federal agenda, go through the outline of that, and then you can ask me questions if you can at the end of that, so that I probably answer most of your questions throughout the presentation, but if I don't, I'll give you an opportunity to do that in between or right after. Let's go ahead and start with the state agenda. This session convened on Monday, January 12th, 2009. Governor Napolitano, at the time, former Governor Napolitano, did give her final State of the State address before she was inaugurated or confirmed into her Secretary of Homeland Security position with the Obama administration. She was confirmed on January the 20th, 2009. The day after that was Governor Brewer's inauguration, January the 21st, with a few of us attended. And she went ahead and took over the governor's position. Now, over the last election cycle, there have been some major changes to the House and the Senate. Unlike the national trend, Arizona's Republicans fared fairly well here locally. The House increased its representation to 35 Republicans to 25 Democrats, and the Senate, 18 Republicans to 12 Democrats. There was also a change in leadership this time around, and Senator Bob Burns, which now is president of the Senate, he's from Peoria, he's West Valley, and the other West Valley representation is also in the Senate, which is Pamela Gorman, and she's over in Anthem, but carries a lot of the Northwest Valley and a little bit of the Northeast Valley, and she is the Senate Majority Whip. As far as our District 12 representatives, we have Representative Jerry Wires. He's now the chair of House and chair of House Military and Public Safety. And then Senator Nelson is the chair of Senate Natural Resources, Infrastructure, and Public Debt. And then our new representative, which is Steve Montenegro, is the vice chair of House Government. So you could see that our representatives have quite a good grasp of the issues that we're going to deal with in the state, and they carry the weight of the committees that a lot of our interests go into. Oh, thanks. Too short to have it up there, sorry. Okay. So let's go in and start talking about the state budget a little bit. The FY09 budget, that was the first item up when the legislature convened in session, and that was a budget fix. As you know, the economy was taking a turn from the last time that I was up here presenting to you, and I did let you know that it looks like they will probably have to come back and address the current year budget, which they did do. Shared revenue was not impacted specifically in the 09 fix. However, there were a lot of fund sweeps, as you heard earlier from Harry's presentation, that did affect cities directly. Actually, I think probably most of the funds that could legally be swept were swept in total. So the league is currently looking at that as a whole, trying to figure out what funds were swept, how much of that money was taken, and what the direct impact is to the cities across the state. And hopefully we'll get that pretty soon, and when we do, I'll make sure I put that in an attachment and out to you so you can get a good grasp of what funds were swept and how those affect the different cities across the state. Specifically, however, the one fund that affected the city of Goodyear was the STAN funds, and that's this State Transportation Acceleration Needs Fund. That fund, $104 million was swept from that fund, and that fund was slated to pay for the I-10 widening from Saraville to Verrado that was supposed to start construction quite soon. So that was a direct effect to our city as well as the city of Buckeye. Now, we have been told that the reason the legislature did sweep that fund was because they felt reassured that the federal government would send federal stimulus money in the way of infrastructure, and that fund would be replenished with federal stimulus money. We're still working out those details to see if that's going to happen in this next couple of months. In the FY10 budget, we're estimated at a $3 billion deficit. That will probably change with the new federal stimulus money coming in, although there's some question as to how much of that is going to shorten the budget. But some people are estimating maybe it will be at a $1.5 billion deficit. It's still not pretty. There's really no one-time funding available. There's really no fund sweeps available. So the legislature is really going to be faced with some difficult decisions this time around on how to take care of this shortfall. You'll recognize these guiding principles, as the guiding principles are pretty much the same as last year's. Fiscal sustainability, of course, is making sure that our shared revenue is not affected throughout this process. That's our number one priority. Local authority, the city will continue to support the protection of local control and the decision-making authority that comes along, and we will continue to oppose any attempts to go into that will erode this control. Economic development, the city of Goodyear relies on numerous tools, as Harry talked about earlier, to make sure that we attract economic development. We support efforts and will maintain and enhance the economic development mechanisms available to create future economic sustainability. And the city will oppose attempts to limit or prohibit Goodyear's ability to execute economic development projects. Military, of course, the city recognizes the need to be ongoing in the partnership with Luke Air Force Base as well as the military bases across our state. They are a recession-proof economic engine in our state and very important to the vitality of our city and our state as a whole. So we'll make sure that we continue to support Luke efforts throughout the process. Public safety, of course, support efforts to preserve and enhance its ability to strategically plan for and respond public safety needs of the community. And then specifically, later you'll see that we're working with the City of Phoenix on funding the 911 system to make sure that we have appropriate funds to address the 911 deficit. And then transportation, the City of Goodyear has always been a regional partner and will continue to be so in our statewide efforts to fund and coordinate transportation infrastructure and planning with the proper organizations, as well as stop any legislative efforts to hurt that process. And then neighborhoods, the times are very challenging right now, and it's even more important for the city to preserve and enhance the quality of life for our neighborhoods and our communities through the programs that are coming about and the funding that may be provided to us through the stimulus package. I'm going to go in a little bit into the specific state legislative priorities the City of Goodyear has been working on this year. Of course, as I mentioned, adequate 911 system funding. This has been an issue for quite some time. The City of Phoenix is really the lead agency on this particular issue. However, cities like Goodyear and others are partnering up with the City of Phoenix to make sure that in the process of cutting the budgets, the state 911 system is replenished and the money's there in order for us to be able to continue to provide the public safety that's necessary. Impact fees, of course, you guys all know about the challenges the city faces every year with the development community and impact fees. This issue has come back again. The bill that is in the process is it's actually the exact same bill that was vetoed last year by Governor Napolitano. Our staff is working diligently with the league as well as other cities at a negotiating table to make sure that the impact fee program doesn't go through the changes that are actually going to, I think, devastate the program. So we're working really hard with negotiations. We'll see what happens throughout the process. I'll make sure to keep you updated as the bill changes throughout. Graffiti, the City of Phoenix last year was the lead and is again the lead. They have a bill in process that increases the penalty on graffiti crimes. This is something that they're going after. It's near and dear to their heart. I know it's near and dear to yours, as you brought up many of these issues last year. And what the bill does is it increases the penalty for damaging property with graffiti to a Class 1 misdemeanor. And we'll also be working with them on that. And then finally, of course, Harry mentioned earlier, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council is working on the establishment of a renewable energy business tax credit program. The City of Goodyear has hired a state lobbyist that is focused specifically on this program. Jim Norton of R&R Partners is really the lead on this. He's also representative of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce manufacturers, very well respected in the business community, and has been working very hard with GPEC and Senator Leff, who's the sponsor of the bill, to help out in this process. So we're front and center on that issue as well. Okay, so that's the legislative front. Are there any questions, or is there anything that I missed that you need information on or you feel needs to be addressed?
One question. You stated that it was Napolitano that had vetoed the bill for the impact fees last year. If it hit that point again, what's Brewer's position? Do you know?
Councilmember Osborne, we are not quite sure where Governor Brewer stands on the impact fee issue. It's quite a different environment this year because of the economy changing, the housing communities in trouble, the cities are a little bit in financial trouble. So, you know, it all really depends on what the bill will look like, what it actually impacts, what the cost of it is, and what, you know, what the city's argument will be. But I have a feeling that until it reaches a point of negotiation and we have a bill in the process, that we probably won't get any definite answer out of Governor Brewer on how she feels about impact fees.
Any other questions?
Okay. We'll go ahead and go into the federal agenda discussion. This is going to be a little bit shorter. This is the first time that I've presented a federal agenda to you. Last year we didn't have one. It was my first year and I focused on the state. So we've expanded that effort and gone into the federal legislative discussion. This is the first session of the 111th Congress. It was convened on Monday, January 6, 2009. And unlike the Arizona elections, the national elections fared well for the Democrat Party. They increased their majority to 256 Democrats and 178 Republicans. And I think there was still one vacancy when I typed this up. We may be still, that may have changed, but I'm not sure. And then on the Senate side, Democrats increased their majority to 56 Democrats, 41 Republicans, 2 independents, and there was still one vacancy that's in the court system, and that's the Minnesota race. And then as far as our members of Congress, we have Senator John Kyle, who has taken a lead role as a minority leader, which is also known as the minority whip. That's the number 2 spot in the Senate. And then, of course, we've returned Senator McCain to the Senate, who doesn't officially have a leadership position, but is a very respected and a senior senator. So we're faring quite well for Arizona in the Senate. Again, the guiding principles are going to be pretty much the same. I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, fiscal sustainability, local authority, economic development, preservation, military, these are all, just like the state, they fare well for the federal level, and they're good guiding principles to guide me and my work and the lobbyist work at the federal level. Okay. And then we have a couple of specific items this year on our federal agenda, and the number 1 item that we have been working on and continue to work on is obviously the Luke Air Force Base and the F-35 mission. This is near and dear, obviously, to Goodyear's heart in the West Valley, and it's taken, I guess what we can say, the next step in the level of getting the F-35 here to Arizona and specifically to Luke. But I just wanted to go back and kind of state that since 2006, when we became part of the West Valley Partners, there has been $10 million secured for the base in the past 3 or 4 years through the federal government. And that included $2 million for the purchase of the Link 16 radio system and the military sensor upgrades, $880,000 for the military operations and urban terrain, $1.7 million for the Luke runway restoration project that was approved back in September of 2008 budget, and then $5.5 million secured last year for the phase 1 of the runway restoration project. So $10 million in the past few years for Luke is quite an accomplishment for the West Valley Partners, and I just thought I'd want to make sure that you guys were aware of that. The next issue that is new, actually, to the City of Goodyear and our federal efforts is the transportation infrastructure. What we've done this year is the city's hired a federal lobbying firm to assist us in our efforts to secure funds and infrastructure needs. And the reason why we did it this year is because this is going to be the first year in the transportation reauthorization bill, and that's a bill that lasts over 5 years, and what it does is it's kind of like the federal government's transportation master plan. It's where they spend their money in the next 5 years on major projects throughout the country. So we hired a federal lobbyist to help us position Goodyear as well as our region in identifying projects in the transportation master plan so that we can get funding back for major projects like at the I-10 or like the MC-85 or the 303 South. So that's part of the process this year, and staff has been working diligently with the federal lobbyists to identify 5 top projects. We're in the process right now of identifying those, putting white papers together, and getting those over to the federal lobbyist so that he can get that into the transportation reauthorization appropriations requests that are coming up in the next few months. And that concludes the federal legislative agenda. If there's any questions on that, please bring them up now.
Any questions, comments? Councilmember Cavalieri.
Yes, Rowena, thank you very much for that enlightenment. I do have a question on the federal lobbyist. Is this government lobbyist, are we in partnership with any other city on this, city within our region, especially the west side?
No,
or is this
This federal lobbyist is specifically, Councilmember Cavalier, hired for Goodyear's projects, and the reason we did that is because most of the cities hire their own federal lobbyists specifically to, for lack of better words, earmark a project in the federal level for their city. Surprise has a federal lobbyist, Mesa, Peoria, Phoenix. It's quite normal for all cities to have their own, and it's really difficult to partner up with another city in that aspect because if we want a project to get funded and they want a different project to get funded, the federal lobbyist gets
That's
kind of
my concern.
split between. Yeah, and actually in our contract with our federal lobbyist, we have a clause that says that they're not able to represent any other city in the state of Arizona.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to Katie Wilkin and the accepting the 2008 general plan.
Mayor,
progress report.
we need to adopt that resolution.
There's a resolution associated with Romena's presentation. Yeah, there is.
Oh, 09.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that is.
091291.
I see.
To be proactive.
Okay, Katie, stand by if you would. Okay, we're now back to the other item, and I failed to realize that we have to vote on that agenda. Are there any comments from the public on the legislative agenda for the state or federal government? Okay.
Mr. Matlin has a comment.
Okay, Mr. Matlin?
Sure it'll be riveting.
You were hoping I wouldn't speak tonight. I'm just curious, and this is a question regarding the presentation, is how do we preserve Luke Air Force Base and the military by continuing to develop so much in the city of Goodyear? Because isn't there an issue between the development of residential as well as commercial in the path of the fighter jets that are flying south? And isn't that an issue that more development will lessen the chances of Luke Air Force Base staying around?
Can I answer that? The state and the county recently had a lawsuit in which the state believed that the county was not carrying out their responsibility to protect land in and around an airport. In particular, they were talking about Ox 1. And the state took action against the county for that. Now, Goodyear has responsibilities on this, what we call the southern corridor of Luke Air Force Base. And you note they didn't sue us, they didn't come after us. And the reason for that is we've protected that. Our noise contour zones are well protected by Goodyear. In fact, several years ago, I think it was about 5 years ago, this council agreed to spend $3.5 million, which was 1/10 of our O&M budget, to protect Luke Air Force Base. And we bought land out there on Cotton Lane, I think, and Indian School, and to protect Luke, so that land could not be developed and therefore encroach or allow encroachment of Luke Air Force Base. So, Mr. Matlin, we are definitely complying with the state law. And in fact, we've gone beyond it historically in the city to protect the lands in and around Luke Air Force Base. And in fact, our actions have been totally in accord with what Luke Air Force Base leadership wants us to do.
And I appreciate that explanation, and I'm aware of those actions. I was thinking more in regard to in the southern part of the city with the annexation of the Simone Valley. I am familiar with many people that are over at Luke Air Force Base, and they have indicated that there is a big concern over there that if development continues south at a rapid pace, that the jets are going to have to go further in order to basically do their missions, and the further south they have to go before they can fly in the way they do. And I'll be honest, I don't have any experience in that. I'm sure you do. So, but that they're being pushed further south, and there's a great concern that the base will not be able to last very long because of that. Because the more development, the more homes that come up, the further they're flying over residential areas.
The time will tell, obviously, and none of us can project the future, but as it stands right now, the developments planned by the City of Goodyear are totally in accord with Luke Air Force Base planning, regardless where it is in the city. So there's reason to be optimistic that what we're doing in Goodyear will not interfere in the planning of Luke Air Force Base with the 16 or with the 35. Okay, and if we did, we would take action to curtail that, frankly. Our history would indicate that's what we do.
Oh, and clearly the city has done that around the base, and no question that the recent legal action that was taken, and that certainly does benefit, no question there, Luke Air Force Base in the ruling on that. I'm just concerned about the future development to the south, that at some point their concern is that, you know, if we have to fly too far before we finally get to act like regular fighter pilots, then it's just basically gotten to a point of where they're concerned that they're going to just have to close shop and go somewhere else.
Yeah,
and I like having Luke Air Force Base here, so I appreciate what they do and enjoy seeing the jets going over my house, but just a question that I had in mind. So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Souza, did you want to?
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Mayor Kavanaugh, your agenda is incorrect. I need to read the resolution and then a roll call vote.
It's on the back of that page.
Adopt
right.
Resolution 09-1291 to be proactive and involved in the state governmental decision-making process directly affecting the city legislative priorities identified in the City Council Action Form Report and the Arizona League of Cities and Towns legislative priorities and providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt the resolution as read by the clerk.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice Mayor Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Cavalier. We've had discussion from the public. Any council discussion on this subject? Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Antoniak?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, Katie, you're up now, for sure. And we're going to be talking about the 2008 General Plan Progress Report.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. I'm pleased to be before you again to bring the second report on progress of implementing our general plan. You may remember that in April of 2008, I brought our first general plan progress report to the council, and that covered years 2003 to 2007. This progress report covers implementation activities during the year 2008, and from today and this point forward, we plan to bring this report to you annually as required by state statutes. The creation of the general plan was overseen by a 21-member General Plan Advisory Committee known as GPAC, who endured over a 16-month planning process, which included 21 public meetings. The plan was ratified by voters on November 4th, 2003, and the Arizona Planning Association awarded the city's efforts with the Best Comprehensive Plan Award. And listed above are the General Plan Advisory Committee members. Each of them received a copy of the last year's General Plan Progress Report as requested by City Council, along with a letter of appreciation once again for all their efforts during the planning process. As of January 1st, 2009, our population is 61,754 according to city estimates. We have just over 22,000 dwelling units in the city. Our city size is 190 square miles, and our municipal planning area is about 247 square miles. Since adoption of the general plan in 2003, this represents an 82% increase in population, an 83% increase in dwelling units, a 62% increase in city size, and an 83% increase in planning area size. Part of the general plan was an implementation program for years 2004 to 2008, which was included as Chapter 12 of the general plan. This implementation program set activities that would help us implement the general plan. It set the objective, the specific objective each activity would implement, the purpose of the activity, a department to take lead responsibility, a priority and completion date, and resources and stakeholders that would help us implement the activity. Included in the progress report is a status report on this implementation program. And since this was a near-term implementation program for years 2004 to 2008, this represents the final progress report on this implementation program. And the status report includes the status, which is either complete, continued, or revised, as well as a progress update. There were 42 near-term implementation activities in the general plan, and 28 of those are complete. 12 of these are being continued to the next implementation program, which is the 2009-2013 near-term implementation program, which is the next item on our agenda. And 2 of the activities are being revised into one activity and included in that new implementation program. And those 2 activities are being revised because they related to affordable housing programs, and we thought it was best, considering all the changes our city has experienced, to take a step back and look at what our needs are for housing affordability first, and then decide what the appropriate programs to pursue would be after that. And so about 81% of our near-term activities are either complete or underway, since many of the ones being carried over are currently underway. There were 6 general plan amendments in the 2008 general plan amendment cycle, and 4 of these have been approved, and 2 of them are being carried into 2009 for consideration. If these 2 continued amendments are approved, though, those general plan amendments will increase the potential unit build-out by about 3,000 dwelling units and increase our population build-out by over 8,000 people. Since adoption of the general plan, there have been 23 general plan amendments. 18 of these were major amendments, and 2 of them were text amendments. These 23 amendments have increased our planning area by 112 square miles, and you can see the amendments listed that have increased our area, and obviously the most significant was the Sonoran Valley. There have been 113 potential dwelling units added because of these general plan amendments, and a potential for an additional 250,000 residents because of these. And once again, the Sonoran Valley addition represented the largest addition of those dwelling units and residents. And so, with our municipal planning area being just shy of 247 square miles, our dwelling unit build-out for the MPA is just under 259,000 dwelling units, and population build-out is just under 639,000. And so looking at how we are getting to build-out, again, our dwelling unit build-out is about 258,000 units. And since we have about 22,000 built units, that means we're about 8.5% built out in terms of housing. There's 158,000 dwelling units that have been entitled through the zoning process, and about 30,000 dwelling units have been final platted. And so we subtract those 22,000 units that have been built, that means we have 8,000 dwelling units, 8,000 platted lots that don't have a dwelling unit on them yet. Excuse me. And there are an additional 35,000 dwelling units that are under zoning review right now, the majority of those represented in the Rainbow Valley PAD proposals, as well as the Arizona State Land Department proposals. And we can break this down by area of the city. And again, this is just for residential only. But the area north of I-10 is 55% built out. The area between I-10 and the Gila River is 35% built out. The area from the Gila River to Patterson Road is about 3% built out. And the Sonoran Valley area doesn't have any significant portion of it built out. And this chart kind of shows you how the geographic distribution of population will shift as we reach build-out. Currently, 38% of our residents live north of I-10, but when we reach build-out, only 7% of our residents will be north of I-10. And currently, about 18% of our residents are south of the Gila River, but when we reach build-out, about 82% of our residents will live south of the Gila River. We currently have about 17,000 jobs in the city of Goodyear, and we have about 22,000 homes, which means our jobs-to-housing ratio is 0.77. Our general plan states a goal of having a jobs-to-housing ratio between 0.67 and 0.89, so we're right where the general plan wants us to be. Now, typically, a jobs-to-housing ratio of 1 or above indicates a self-sustaining community rather than a commuter community, so that's kind of what our goal should be. And at build-out, our jobs-to-housing ratio would have been 1.04, but since the 2008 general plan amendment cycle included a lot of industrial land, that's been bumped up to 1.59. So our build-out is a good jobs-to-housing ratio to create Goodyear as a sustainable community. There were 8 annexations in 2008, which added 2,360 acres to the city. One of those was the Lufthansa airport, and the rest were right-of-way annexations. Since adoption of the general plan, there have been 26 annexations, adding 46,000 acres, again, Sonoran Valley being the most significant of those. 7 planned area developments have been approved through 2008, which you can see listed up there, the most significant being our Goodyear City Center quadrants. And of course, we've been implementing other planning efforts, such as the Rural Development Ad Hoc Subcommittee, which several of you were a part of. The Community Parks Master Plan has been going through the planning process. The Integrated Water Master Plan was adopted this year. The El Rio Watercourse Master Plan, staff has been an integral part of the committees to implement that. The Hacienda Framework Study was approved this year, and the Hidden Valley Framework Study is still in the planning process. And we all know about our All-America City and Most Livable City designations. And also last year's General Plan Progress Report was given an honorable mention in the public education category by Arizona Planning Association. And I'd like to wrap up this presentation as I did last year, just to remind the public that this report will be available on our website. Our general plan is available on our website. We also have a lot of the demographic data that I went through available on our website. And of course, if anyone ever has a question on what's happening in the city, what that vacant piece of property across the street is going to be, please contact community development or planning and zoning staff, and we'd be happy to go through land use maps with any of our citizens to help them understand what is going on in our city. So that concludes my presentation on the General Plan Progress Report. Planning and Zoning Commission did unanimously recommend Council accept the General Plan Progress Report at their January 21st meeting. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Very nice presentation.
Yes, it was. Very good.
Opportunity for comments from the public.
Maybe we'll get educated on Luke Air Force Base again.
Yes, Mr. Matlin. And again, I should have mentioned before that we try to limit it to 3 minutes if we could.
My pleasure. I'm just having a field day today. Just in hearing this presentation and having reviewed some of the others having to do with the growth of the city, and being that our current city council is so growth happy, I'm trying to figure out, we have a mall that is not going in. We have developments like the Target Center over off of Yuma and Cottonwood Lane that are struggling and probably going to go into foreclosure. We have vacant commercial real estate north of the freeway with the Mervins, with Circuit City, Linens and things, and many small businesses here in the community that are small businesses owned by residents here in Goodyear that are failing. Is the goal of the city council just to become Phoenix or Los Angeles? I don't really understand why we would want to get to 638,000 people. What is the point of this?
Would anyone like to respond to that?
Yeah,
Mr.
call it
Souza?
growth. Call it growth. We can't stop it. People, if the developers want to develop here, we can't stop them from coming here and doing it. And our growth has been basically the responsibility of developers.
Councilmember Sousa, respectfully, that's called planning.
Well, yeah, but this city is well-planned, as you've just heard.
Anyone else like to comment?
Oh, I'm so tempted.
Well, no,
But I don't know.
I think
I
Mr.
don't-
Matlin would like a response. So
Well, I think with all due
Maybe-
respect, Mr. Matlin, I think the city's planning department does a fine job of planning for growth within the standatory or the mandatory statutes that are in front of us, given to us by the state legislature and given to us by the government and the constitutional powers that we have as a city. And I would encourage you to take the 250, 300, 400, I don't know how many page document that we sat through 24 some odd meetings and some very, very late nights with about 25 of my community members, 2 of us which sit up here, 3 of us which are in this room, and many staff members were involved in and thumb through the general plan and take a look at that, and it will identify the reasons, the purposes, and the dialogue and the amount of thought and process that went into planning the city. Growth is a fact of life in Arizona, and it's something that we have to plan for and we have to anticipate for. Is my 3 minutes up?
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyhow, Mr. Matlin, you continue to come up here and educate me on Land Use 101 and Luke Air Force Base Protection 101, but quite candidly, if you'd taken the time to read the things this evening, 2-5 of the general plan, which was completed in 2005, very clearly addresses Luke Air Force Base on one of the points that you made earlier this evening. So.
I actually have read those documents.
I don't necessarily want to debate with them about this, Mr. Mayor.
We shouldn't do that. I think you covered it nicely.
Thank you.
I have read those documents just for the record, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Further comments from the public? Okay. Could I have a motion, please, to accept the 2008 General Plan Progress Report?
I will gladly move to accept it.
Second.
A motion from Vice Mayor Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Holland. It's open for discussion on the council. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. We'll now move to resolution. Again, Katie, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. As I mentioned in my previous report, the near-term implementation program that's currently in our general plan was meant to be activities implemented in the first 5 years of our general plan, which is 2004 to 2008. So it expired at the end of 2008, which meant it was time to create a new near-term implementation program for the years 2009 to 2013, or the second half of our general plan life. In creating this near-term implementation program, we compiled activities from several sources. The first are those ones that are carried over from the previous implementation program because they hadn't yet been completed. And there are 12 activities being carried over. And that was table 1 of the information that was given to you, those activities. The second source was that within the general plan, at the end of each chapter, there were long-term implementation activities listed. We took those long-term implementation activities and took a second look at them since so much time had passed. Some of them had actually been implemented. Some of them weren't necessarily relevant to the city anymore. And so we talked to all the departments and kind of gave a status update on those, and that's that table 2 that's part of your packet. I'm giving you an update. There were 27 items listed in the general plan as long-term activities, and I believe 14 are being carried over. Next, we requested input from departments just to find out what activities they were already planning to do that would implement the goals and objectives of the general plan. And the fourth thing we did was we incorporated items that the Smart Growth Scorecard, which I'll go through next, identified as things that are important for cities to be doing. And so the implementation activity looks very similar to the one that's currently in the general plan, except we added a column showing you where the origination of this activity was, so you know if it was originally in the first implementation program or it was identified by department. And then we also added a column to let you know that if it helps boost our Smart Growth Scorecard score. Now, some of those that were already in it help boost our Smart Growth Scorecard score, and just because one doesn't mean it's not valuable. It just kind of for our information, so we know that we're implementing the Smart Growth Scorecard. And so we came up with 33 near-term implementation activities. And again, 12 were part of the original implementation program, 10 of them were long-term activities, and 24 of these 33 will help boost our Smart Growth Scorecard score. There was one activity that I did want to point out to you, and several activities relate to it. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that next year's general plan progress report will be the first time we implement you on the activities being done on this implementation program. So we put the general plan update in the implementation program. Basically, we're required by state statutes to update our general plan every 10 years. So our general plan expires on November 4th, 2013. However, we've reached a significant milestone, and we're now over 50,000 in population, which means we have additional requirements. And this is a flow chart that the Department of Commerce has created to help us figure out what our requirements are. And so we are between 2,500, we're not between 2,500 and 10,000. So the last time we did the general plan update, we were required to do the 7 elements listed here, which we did include. However, now we're going to be above 50,000 in population, so we have to do the 7 elements we've already included. We did include 2 elements that are required of large communities, so 2 of them have already been taken care of. But then we have 8 additional elements that we don't currently have in our general plan that are required of large communities. We also may want to consider adding additional elements. A community character element is already in our general plan, so we may want to keep that in our general plan. And we may want to consider adding an element such as an economic development element. There's obviously economic development goals and objectives within the plan, though. And so you can see by looking at this list that the content of our general plan is going to increase a lot. And the state statutes require that the city over 50,000 is based on decennial census. So those numbers won't come out until April 2011 when we'll officially hit. So we're not looking at 2013 as necessarily our end date. We probably won't be able to finish it by 2011, though. But it does take 2 to 3 years to complete a plan update. We have to prepare by doing research and generating maps. All of those who were involved in our last plan update know that we have a public participation plan, and the planning portion itself was 16 months long for our last plan. And then just the approval process can take 8 to 9 months or possibly a year, which I was just hearing before the meeting. And so you can see how 2 to 3 years adds up very quickly. So we're actually going to be getting started on updating the general plan now, at least the initial stages of research and planning. So I just wanted to point out that one item to you since it's so significant. But that does conclude my presentation on the near-term implementation program. This is a resolution, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended council adopt the resolution that's before you, and it's because we're considering this a text amendment to the general plan, so it's a minor general plan amendment. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to read the resolution by title only, please.
Adopt Resolution 09-1293, approving a minor amendment to the Goodyear General Plan 2003-2013 to establish a near-term implementation program for 2009-2013 and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council pass resolution number 09-1293. So moved.
Second. Motion from Susan, and second from Vice President Koliak. It's open for discussion.
Does that mean, I would assume then in fiscal year 10, we'd see a budget item for general plan? Is that a good assumption? Just knowing the effort that was entailed last time.
Mayor Kavanaugh, Councilmember Antoniak, we're currently looking at how we might approach the plan. We feel we have staff that are capable of producing a majority of the document, but there may be some additional assistance we might want to have in terms of conducting some of the public participation and the outreach. And so if there is a budget item, hopefully it will not be too significant.
Good idea for some folks who
But you're still going to have the general plan committee.
Oh, yeah. That's illegal. That's illegal. That's a statutorily.
So there'd be a budget item for their
I was,
food.
well, it
Tell
wasn't
about a
just
budget
food.
item.
I was thinking the likes of, Flaming and the others that were in the room that guided
Right.
that whole process last time, and that's a significant expenditure on our part. And
That's correct, and
so we want to
ordinarily,
be aware of it.
we-
When would you expect the committee to be formed? Can you tell us when that will be?
right now, I'm looking at probably about 6 to 8 months out, anticipating an 18 to 24-month process that would culminate in adoption, an election in 2012,
So calendar year 10, late '09
late '09.
is when you're talking
Yes.
about identifying these folks. Wow.
It's a big job.
It is.
Big.
We know.
Comments from over here?
I had one question, because I don't know if I should ask it here or if I should ask it on the next presentation about the scorecard. There are two items in the scorecard that, I looked through your chart of how different sections were addressed in the scorecard and how it came back to the general plan.
That is in the
So
next one.
there were two items, though, that I was concerned about that are not reflected in this. And so should we talk about it in the next presentation, or should we talk about it here?
They're within the scorecard, but they didn't make it to the
Yes.
implementation program.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah, let's
now.
talk about it now.
Okay. I had actually noticed 9 areas in the scorecard that I would like to see better scores or changes, and I can discuss that with management, but there were 2 in particular that were not already being addressed. 7 were, so that was good. But the 2 were number 34, going over to the scorecard side, number 34 and number 39. Number 34 states, how does your community plan for its future social infrastructure and service needs, different things like that. And number 39 said, how does your community integrate wildlife movement corridors, especially with our Sonoran Valley Wildlife Corridor? I had great concern that we were not doing enough. And so, since they were not in the implementation side of our general plan, that was why I had the question.
Thank you, Councilmember Osborne. For number 34, which asks about how we're addressing future social infrastructure such as child and dependent care, senior services, disability services, it was thought, and we may not have made this clear, but one of the implementation items, or one of the required elements of the general plan that'll be added is a neighborhood preservation element. And part of that, we assume, will be, our neighborhoods and the people in our community getting the services they need. And so I believe our thought was that would be wrapped into that. And, kind of, you can see that 3 points. It says our general plan and zoning ordinance addresses these needs. So we hope to address that in our general plan, and we were thinking of doing that with the update, but, if council felt that it should be addressed up front, sooner rather than later, we could look into that, definitely.
Well, we certainly want as many 3
Yes.
points as we can get, right? Okay. And then the second one, the wildlife corridor, number 39?
Yes, we actually do have staff members who have been meeting, I believe, the Sonoran Desert Institute. Yes, Sonoran Institute. One of our planners has been going to meetings and training on that. I believe they're creating a conservation plan. So we have been getting staff the training on how to address these wildlife corridors accurately. With the Sonoran Parkway, that's going to be, in the planning process right now. We've been working with the Bureau of Land Management to ensure that we don't negatively impact the wildlife corridors that are in that area near the desert monument. The thing that we felt we were missing of getting to the 3 points is that we don't necessarily have a specific plan on how to deal with it, even though we feel like we have tasks that we're working toward it. And that's something, again, we want to incorporate in when we do the general plan update, and we're working to now, but we don't have a specific activity to list in the implementation program.
Well, I guess that, with kind of the nicety of us slowing down in growth is that it gives us a chance to truly look at our environmental issues and get those lined out for the future when we go back again like gangbusters and are prepared for it. And those are something very important to me, so thank you.
Councilman Osborne, let me just elaborate, and I think Kitty answered the question correctly, that we would intend to address it more thoroughly in the general plan update. But at the same time, we already know where a lot of the wildlife corridors are, particularly in the Sonoran Valley, as a result of the work that was done not only in the Sonoran Valley plan, but also as part of the environmental impact statement related to the road, the Sonoran Parkway road work. And since that is going through BLM land, we are trying to address it through or accommodating the wildlife corridors through the design of that roadway. Fortunately, nothing else much is going to happen in that area other than that road because it is BLM land. Right. So we have that one particular advantage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, comments? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Antoniak?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh? Passes 7-0.
Okay, we'll now move to the last item on our business agenda for this meeting is the Arizona Smart Growth Scorecard, and Katie.
Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh, members of the council. Next item, as you said, is the Smart Growth Scorecard. And before I get into the scorecard, I did just want to take a step back to talk first about what smart growth is. And what it is using basically trying to use our land in the smartest way possible, using a mix of land use, making it walkable, offering different types of transportation options, and preserving open space and our other natural resources. And these slides I took right out of the Department of Commerce's presentation on the Smart Growth Scorecard, and this is an example of how smart growth can be implemented in a community. This is in Tempe. This is Apache and McClintock roads, and you can see it looks like a traditional suburban development road, and they show how it can change just by getting light rail within the area, and then just adding street trees, and then infilling with buildings right on the street, and then further infill, and all of a sudden that suburban-looking street has suddenly become a dynamic place to be. That's a lot of fun, and using the land use to the best of its ability. There are many tools that we can use to create smart growth, such as using our planned area developments to encourage mixed uses, traditional neighborhood design, using specific area plans, transit-oriented design, water conservation, and natural resource planning. And so the Growing Smarter Plus legislation has been around for several years, and our general plan is based on that legislation. And so what Governor Napolitano did was said, I want to reward those communities that are doing smart growth. So how do we figure out what communities are engaged in smart growth? So she created the Governor's Smart Growth Cabinet to create an incentive-based tool to determine who's doing smart growth. So they created the scorecard that looks for, do we have those tools in place so that we can implement smart growth. The second part of the scorecard was also to just encourage discussion and public education about smart growth. There are 6 guiding principles that are part of the Growing Smart legislation, and they use these 6 principles to create the Smart Growth Scorecard. So you can see the first one up there is responsibility and accountability. And the first chapter of the Smart Growth Scorecard is responsibility and accountability. Each community is designated as either small, medium, and large, and depending on what size you are determines how many questions of the scorecard you have to answer. And Goodyear is considered a large community since we have a population over 50,000, according to the last census estimate. And so what is our score? Again, we have to answer all 50 questions, and there's possible 3 points for each question. So that means it's a possible of 150, and if we get 120 to 150, we're in that smart growth category. And Goodyear's self-assessment left us with a score of 122, which does put us in the smart growth category. We can break that down by area so we can see what areas we're achieving best in and what areas we have room for improvement. Our total score was 81%, and you can see preservation of community character was one of our strongest areas with 92%, and stewardship of natural resources is an area we can look for improvement with our 67%. There are 13 state agencies that are participating in the Smart Growth Scorecard, and each of them will offer different incentives for having the Smart Growth Scorecard. Some of them, such as Arizona State Parks with their grant applications, it'll be a simple yes or no. Do you have a scorecard or do you not have a scorecard? Other agencies will look for ways to reward you for being a smart growth. You might get percentage points off loans if you're a smart growth community. The Department of Housing, for example, is looking at a way to tie the CDBG program to the smart growth. If your CDBG project is in a category where you need improvement, you'll get some points for that since you're trying to improve your smart growth. And so each of the agencies has their own way of implementing this. And staff is looking into how we can use that for each agency, of course. And that concludes my presentation on the Smart Growth Scorecard. And Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend that council authorize staff to submit the scorecard, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have on it.
Okay, again, we're considering accepting this scorecard report.
Yes.
Okay, opportunity for anyone from the public to comment. Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion, please, from council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the 2009 Arizona Smart Growth Scorecard for Goodyear as presented by staff.
Second.
Motion from Vice Mayor Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Holland. It's open for discussion. Vice Mayor?
Is there any, I imagine there's not, but I'm going to ask the question, is there any indication whether state agencies are going to carry forward with this over the next several years, or are they going to drop it?
We haven't heard, the Department of Commerce hasn't heard if this is going to still be tied to funding or not. Okay. The Department of Commerce, though, has been cleared with member agencies that even if funding does get taken away from the Smart Growth Scorecard, they really encourage communities to do it because it is a tool for us to assess where we are with smart growth and educate the public on smart growth. And they really have it set up nice on their website because they've posted everybody's smart growth as they scorecard as they submit them. So, we could see areas where we didn't score as high as we'd like and see, go find those communities that are scoring high and find out what they're doing, why they're scoring so high. And so it's hoping to bring about that discussion throughout all of Arizona about smart growth. So, but the answer to your question is we don't know yet what the future of this is with funding.
Okay. I will say, I do know that the only person that was retained in the cabinet was the person leading this effort, Shannon Scutari. So she was retained. But anyway, I just don't know if it'll continue.
Mm-hmm. But it seems like that, even if it's not
tool.
sanctioned by the state, that it's a great self-assessment tool that we could use to make sure that we're still doing what's the best thing for the citizens. So it's good.
It's not in statute, is it?
I think it was
executive. Did Napolitano put it in executive order?
I don't know.
It was an executive order.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought it was an executive order.
Okay, so, okay. It may have a very short life, but we'll see. Comments over here?
Well, so self-assessment says that we have a D in stewardship of natural resoursources, 67%.
To your earlier point.
If you were my teenager, I won't go and tell you what you would be grounded for. So we are going to change that, correct? Because let me tell you, this person can't live with that. So, okay.
Change
Good work.
I just, if you don't mind, I'd like to follow up. We are, concerned with that as well, and we do already have identified a few items we can work on over the next year to hopefully increase our score to 73% by this time next year. And we kind of have a plan. Most of these are within the implementation program, and if we implement the implementation program, we can get up to 100% by 2012, 2013.
Ooh, I like that. I take away cell phones and car keys, so.
I agree with you. It would save some budget. Take away everybody's cell phone and car keys, right?
Okay, further discussion?
Mayor, to this point of smart growth and the discussion on that 67%, I don't know if we have time in our schedule in the next, several months to 6 months to hear from Sonoran Institute in Lincoln. I think it's Institute as well. They're partnered up on a series of endeavors in the Southwest and in the mountain states that I think are applicable to all of us. And obviously, we've got a staff member that is going to many of their education seminars. But I think a briefing, they've been making the rounds around the valley and the state and the region, quite honestly. educating folks on their perspective, and it's not necessarily what one would think of in terms of a traditional kind of, Sierra Club up against growth kind of perspective. It's actually a pretty responsible and responsive attitude to the current conditions that exist within all the states in the mountain region, and how pro-growth they are, and how to go about in response to that growth, and being responsible stewards of our resources. So if we can have them here, it'd be great.
That'd be a great idea.
I think.
Okay, Councilmember Cavalier.
The concern I have is in looking at this scorecard, how some of the things that are in here would be almost impossible for the way they're judging for us to get a 3. For instance, transit, number 40, 41. You go to economic development, 42. Some of those things are not due to the city's fault. This is due to what exists. For instance, in the transit, Proposition 400 money, there is money in there for the city of Goodyear, only it's so far down the road that it's not available to us till it may run out, and we may not get any. And yet they want to score us down on this when we have taken what we have, our resources that have been given to us, and we're using them, I think, very effectively and very efficiently. So some of these things, is there any way you can go back and debate any of these situations? Our economic development is another thing. We're competing with the East Valley in much of our economic development, and depending on the wave of the wind with GPEC, and I know GPEC from way back, and it could be a problem. Those people are there's politics involved. So we're fighting that issue, and I guess you just have to overcome that. I don't know, but I don't know if there's an answer to that question. But I'm just going to say it anyway.
Thank you, Councilmember Cavalier. I should have pointed out, though, that it is not the Department of Commerce's intent to compare scores. They're comparing categories. So once we're in the smart growth category, that's what's most important. The score itself is kind of for our benefit, so we can look at, where are we scoring low, where can we improve, that's for us. But it shouldn't affect any of the funding opportunities or the incentives that the state will provide to us if we have a 122 and someone else has a 125. So that is one important point.
So it's inward and not comparison out with us. Yeah.
Kind of evaluation.
Okay, thank you. Very, very well done, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We'll now move to information. Thank you, Katie, by the way. And opportunity now for members of council to comment on current events.
I've just got one, Mayor. That attended on your behalf a briefing by Mr. Russell, our county assessor, and one of our county supervisors sponsoring a briefing from him, and gave out a packet, and I believe Parish Spies in our office has that packet and is going to be copying it and distributing it to everybody. But there was a whole briefing on the state of the assessor, and I was pleased to be able to say that Larry and your department on the finance side was forward-thinking in that, because obviously the news was not wonderful news from the county assessor in terms of our assessed valuations and the totals going down. But if staff, my request would be from that briefing is, one, our staff distributes that to all of council and management, that the materials that came from that. But if we can get it up on the website somehow, or do some sort of added notification. Obviously, there's been plenty of publicity about it. Tongue twister there. But the important point the assessor wanted to make during that was, if you got your statement and you couldn't sell your house for the amount that the statement was for, that you had 60 days in order to appeal that and get back with the county in order to have your valuation reassessed. And so, obviously the economic times being what they are, we want to communicate that message as much as possible, whether it's through our Infocus or others. But it was definitely an enlightening presentation. The 85338 zip code was down 30 to 35% in assessed valuation, and the 85395 was down 15 to 20, I think, was what I heard at that presentation. So, yeah, which was to be expected. We had all expected that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Souza.
Mr. Mayor, I'm reflecting on the events that occurred at the dedication ceremony for the ballpark. I want to compliment personally to Brian Dahlke for the manner in which he conducted that event. Not only that, but he's been a catalyst down through the months in the development of the ballpark complex, and I think all of us should compliment him for his activities in this area. Those are my personal comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Osborne?
I just wanted to thank staff, our economic development team, and Parish for helping our small business workshop. It was, I think, well received. We had great speakers. We had a great panel, and I think we had anywhere from 35 to 50 small business owners attend the workshops, and so it was very timely, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Yeah, I attended a lot of meetings this week, but one in particular. Today I was at the career days for the 8th grade for the Litchfield Elementary School at the community college. And I spent the day talking to 8th graders about a career in politics, of all things, and anything else that I had been involved in. And it was amazing. It was very enlightening to me to hear those young people with the questions they had. I was there with Officer Tavare. We both had a great experience with those children, but it was quite enlightening to hear their comments and hear their responses, and at that age to be concerned about a career and where they were going or whether or not they were going to college. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. It was a very nice experience for me.
Okay, thank you. Just two quick ones, and then I'm going to talk about the Saturday event, and I'll defer to you, Brian, for the specifics. I know you want to cover something on that, but I do want to thank Councilmember Holland. We were standing at the party deck overlooking the stadium, and she pointed out to me the contrasting colors on the grass were a reflection of our logo, the cones, and I guess I didn't pick up on that too easily. So I appreciate her telling me that, because yesterday I was on TV, Cleveland TV, for half hour, and I mentioned that to them, and that was one of the highlights of the half hour. So, and they really got a kick out of it. It was sort of neat. I was there until about 1 or 1:30 on Saturday, and I could not believe the people who wanted to be running from first to third. I thought it might be 30, 40, 100 kids. There were probably 1,000 people, kids and adults, who wanted to run from first base to third base. It took a good half hour to do it at least. But what happened during this event was that during this time of foreclosures, people losing their house, people losing their jobs, it was exhilarating to me because this was an uplifting experience. This was as good as it gets. Just that one day made this worthwhile, this procurement, this production of a ball field of $108 million. It just uplifted the spirits of our folks. So I was very pleased by that. In fact, one of the most pleasing events I've had as mayor, by top 2 or 3 actually, just because of the people's enthusiasm, and they were so positive. Go to the city manager now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've heard just tremendous comments about Saturday in the facility. I did pull out a couple of stats. I appreciate staff getting these ready, but we were curious about the attendance for the Fan Fest on Saturday. The number is just shy of 5,000 throughout the day, and that went from gates opened at 10:02 and went till 2 o'clock. So during that time, I was also curious, did we sell any tickets for the season? We sold 1,000 on that day, on Saturday. So that now brings our total up to date at about 51,000, which is doing very well. Indians are pleased. Staff is very pleased as well. So another good number. So we asked the question, well, did they sell stuff in the team shop?
Yeah,
I think we have, so I don't see the Indian shirts that are being worn tonight. But anyway, $20,000 were sold on Saturday. Wow. Merchandise sold at the team shop. Now, I should parenthetically tell you that the employees that were there Friday night, they sold, or employees purchased about $5,000 worth of
City of
stuff
Goodyear
out of the people.
employees.
Yeah,
City of Goodyear
employees, that's correct.
Right.
And then the Ovations, who's the concessionaire, and they have a lot of ideas as far as trying to create the fan experience. They had about $9,000 in net sales on the event on Saturday as well. So people are very pleased with the numbers that we're seeing early on. And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just a couple of other brief items, if I may. Paula sent out an email to all the council. Some of you may have already read it. Real quick reminder, of course, tomorrow's a Cactus League breakfast. Breakfast starts at 8:15. The program itself will be at 8:45. Council will be recognized by the MC, but the mayor will be welcoming Goodyear again, which is always great because we are looking at all the communities that are in the Cactus League being there. Dress is business casual, just to point that out. On the 24th, what's also happening, and it was in Paula's email to you, is a train depot starts moving at 9:30. It doesn't get moved over, actually it gets moved during the day. It'll take some time to get it moved, but it goes from its point just south of Lower Buckeye, and it'll continue south on Cotton Lane, east on MC 85, south on 159th Avenue for its next home near the dog park. But if you want to see that, you will be able to see that. That starts at about 9:30. We, of course, with the Centennial Commission being approved, they're going to be looked at how we can reuse that later. And then finally, my last comment, just a reminder to the public, opening day. I know council's extremely aware of it, but opening day, February 25th, we will have the Indians playing the Giants. That starts at 1:05. Pregame starts at 12:48. Mayor's going to be involved on the ball field itself. We're going to have the Luke flyover. And it needs to start promptly at 1:05, so that's why some of the events are happening sooner, because it is going to be on television back in Cleveland, which will show us well, especially with that sunburst on the field and they're in knee-deep snow. Anyway, it's going to be a great day. Looking forward to that, so just for the public as a reminder. Finally, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for follow-up items, I just have a couple. Just want to make sure that you know that staff will follow up. One is to evaluate or add to the sign ordinance for how do we remove signs from vacated property. So we'll just look at the ability to do that. The other that we'll be looking at is pros and cons of the foreign trade zone. So when you see the ordinance before you, which will likely be in the next month and a half, we will be bringing those pros and cons. There was a suggestion, and we can follow up on it if it's a guidance of council, is to bring the Snoren Institute here for an update and briefing, and that would be in a work session. We can look for that later in the year. And then finally, it was brought up that it would be good to distribute the assessor's report, both get it on the website and also get it to council. We'll follow up on that as well. So that's what I had, Mr. Mayor, for follow-up.
Okay, and one item to add, I think, is that Jesse McGuire will be at the game opening event also, and he'll be playing the national anthem. And if you remember the World Series with the D-backs, he did it every time. So we're very fortunate. We're going to have a great event.
Good.
So any questions of staff by council? Seeing none, I'll adjourn this meeting, and we need to go to